Today on Arrows in Motion, we've got founder and CEO of PHENIX Investigations, Brian Bauer. We're talking about misconceptions about the investigation space, breaking through plateaus in business, and the value of mentorship. When you bring on a new person in like a really important critical role for you, are you pairing with them like right out of the gate and you're attached?
No. What we try to do is boot camp them to all different sides of PHENIX and what we do and how we gather the information and how we measure the information. And before, for example, from a sales customer relations person, they really have to know all the different divisions and what's touched and what we provide and what we sell and our customer service and all of those things before you can even start day one from speaking to a client. So, there is a bit of a learning curve there.
Like one of the things I like talking to you about is you've done this for 30 years or how long now?
Oh, God, I hate to admit it. I don't know. I was 20 and I'm 58 now. So no other profession, just have always done investigations since I graduated college, and it's been nonstop ever since. So.
I know we were talking last night about kind of how part of being a business owner is looking back, 6 months, a year ago, and just thinking like, what a clown that I was. When you look back from today, where you were, 10, 20, 30 years ago, what are some of the things that you look back and cringe the worst about?
I think when you look back, it's WTF, right? And you're like, okay, how did I survive? How did I get through that moment? But I'll tell any entrepreneur or business person, embrace it early on. You look back and you have some of those fond memories of the biggest priority was waiting. Hey, is the mailman here yet? Is there going to be a company check so we can make payroll? Or we really need a fax machine to date me, right? So it's like, okay, well, if that check comes in, we can go and buy a fax machine. And so, but those are the days when you knew you were alive and you were doing something and truly building something from scratch. And I think a true entrepreneur that just never goes away.
Were you one of the guys that loved it from the start?
I loved it from the start. I love to do investigations until this day. That's still my love and passion. So it's just been a great career, and it doesn't feel like going to work every day. But as you get more people and more responsibilities, those priorities shift, not because you want to, because they have to.
I think it's no secret. You're an early client of ours. I've known you for years at this point, so you've seen kind of our growth trajectory. One of the problems that I always have is I love doing marketing work. And as you grow, you start to be forced out of that chair a little bit at a time. When did it start to feel that way for you, where you had to spend less time investigating and more time being a businessman?
I think probably when I got maybe 5 to 7 employees and realized just doing straight up the service work of investigations, really it's not where the momentum is at. And to this day, I continue to have to remind myself of I can really move the needle much more from a leadership perspective and giving guidance and looking at measurables versus actually executing one investigation. So that's what you learn over time. And part of being a successful business owner is you have to be a good leader.
Was leadership natural for you, or was it something that you kind of learned through mistakes and failure over time?
Leadership came very natural to me. One, I'm kind of more of get over it, rub some dirt on it, and there's always going to be somebody bigger, faster, stronger, smarter. And so it was, what's the skill set you have and how do you persevere? And at the end of the day, nobody cares, work harder. I have a big banner in my garage in Florida that says just that. But I've since learned and softened my tone quite a bit when it comes to that. And I think being part of a good leader, and what I would suggest and advise to you is, early on you want to treat everybody the same, but the reality is not everybody's the same. They don't tick the same way. And so it took me a very long time to get to the point to where this person might not be motivated just financially or by money. They're motivated by that a boy, or recognition, or having input, or just simply being heard. And it took me a long time to figure that out. And I think part of a great leader is being comfortable in your skin and projecting that to others and empowering them to get to where they want to be.
Was there like a specific employee? I know you kind of you were, an Indiana football guy, and life and work was very different, 35 years ago. Was there a specific employee or incident that gave you that aha of like, the game is changing a little bit and there's some folks I've got to soften on?
Yeah, for all you business owners and entrepreneurs out there, and trying to coach you and Mike, what's great is seeing young business owners. Sometimes I want to shake them and say, trust me, just listen. I've made this mistake so many times. And it's like, yeah, I know. But it's like, you feel like you can give that gift back to society. And unfortunately, I didn't have that person that I could lean on and lean into. And I was just always cut from the cloth of like, oh, I'll just figure it out and do it myself. But there was a lot of trial and error, and I'd probably be even a lot more successful if I embraced that. So as it relates to a moment in time, or in a true event that happened, I don't know if that I can put my finger on one. But what I've learned, and I'm a huge football guy, and I played all three sports in high school, and was a lettered athlete. And sports is very similar to life, and football especially. It's somebody's going to knock you in the mouth, knock you down. You're going to fumble the ball. It's not always going to be great, but it's really about how you react and you get up. And so something that stuck with me, I saw this quote from Nick Saban. He was talking to, I think, a graduating class, and he says that mediocre people hate high achievers, and high achievers hate mediocre people. And until you get your organization on the same page and you get them working as one and figuring out how you focus on getting your organization to be a group of high achievers, you're just always going to continue to struggle. And that just absolutely spots on, whether you've won 7 national championships or you're running a business with, in our case, 360 employees.
Obviously, your business, thankfully I can look at the data. You're beating the brakes off of it this year. You've been around for over 30 years and you've grown, 30% or something year over year, which is pretty uncommon. Is it just a testament to A players on the team?
110%. As I empower people more, you realize how I think as an overall organization, we're at 2,300 cases a month or something like that. And as a smaller organization, we're at 160 to 200 truly complicated cases. And you quickly realize I can't do it alone. As much as you want to try, you can't do it. So you have to really empower those people, lead those people, trust those people are going to screw it up on occasion, but they're not going to learn unless they do screw it up and learn for a life lesson. So it's all about, that's great, and you won't put your hand in the fire without an oven mitt again. You've learned that, and just empower those people from those C employees to be Bs to As, and that goes for clients too. If clients don't recognize your value and want it on the cheap and want it done fast, you got to move those C's to B's, B's to A's, and if you can't, you have to get rid of those C clients, and we've talked a lot about that as well.
Like obviously we're a marketing, consulting firm. So a lot of the time we talk to people, that come to us, it's largely a result of somebody plateauing. And as business owners, we know like what it feels like to be at a plateau. How long were you at your first plateau before you had the aha of how you level up?
Yeah. I'm super guilty of, as I started to make it, and started to make a really good income, I got stuck in this mindset of just don't break it. Instead of growing and advancing, it was just like, no, I think everybody hits that comfort level point to where you just kind of settle in, and then realizing it was never about me to grow to make more money. It was more about, it just makes sense, and breaking through the glass ceiling. And so I would encourage, do it incrementally, do it in steps. But if you're not growing and winning, you're going straight to the grave. And your competitors are going to pass you up, and there's going to be people that are going to be hungrier than you. So when you know that you have a good, solid business, you have to push through those comfort levels, and just invest in yourself. And so don't stop growing would be my strong advice.
Obviously I'm biased because we're in sort of like the playing offense business. That's my number one bias is yes, play offense and go, 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 go. Under the assumption you can actually serve more customers. Has it ever been a problem for you figuring out how to, you've done an amazing job getting customers. Did you ever have a problem as you did that more serving them?
Yeah, I've always joked tongue in cheek saying, hey, we would be Microsoft if everybody just knew how to find us, because in today's world with information is power, and not having the information, and we live in such a information world, and we're really information brokers, and so how can we get that information? And so it's so valuable in order to do that. And so the microcosm of your business is the same. And I'll give you one critique and example of, we're an investigative company. We hire people, and then you get into it, and then you're saying, hey, we're finding this out months later. Did anybody do an investigation on this person before we hired them? Right? And it's the forest through the trees, and it's the same as your business. You're concerned and consumed 24/7, doing a great job for your clients and marketing for your clients, and then who suffers, right? And so your number one client should be you first and foremost in marketing, and honestly, I don't know if it was you or somebody else, but they made a good point that a true success in marketing and sales is when your leads are just constantly bubbling and percolating around you, not nonstop. And when you build that machine and you have those constant leads, you truly do have a lot of flexibility for what you want to do as an owner. For example, you guys have done such a great job for us that we're in that scenario. So we have those leads percolating, and it's very easy. And I even hate to say from a sales perspective, because I don't really approach it from a sales. It's, I'm the doctor. You came to me. You have an ailment. I need to know what your symptoms are, your pain level, all those things. And until I know that, I can't give you a diagnosis. However, once I give you the diagnosis and you think the diagnosis needs to be something else, okay, we're done here. Right? My job is not to convince you of the value. You've come to me for our expertise. I'm going to do that. Through the diagnosis, you're going to learn that, wow, they're really an expert in their field. So just like we do hey, hire the expert, be prepared. We as consumers sometimes think, whoa, okay, I thought that was going to be a lot cheaper. So you certainly have to be respectful and help the client. But at the end of the day, this is the best way to tackle it after doing it for 38 years. And if you can't take my advice, best of luck to you. And that's a real comforting. Clients appreciate that. Yeah. There's a trust factor. You don't waste each other's time. And so it's not about convincing. It's about education and understanding truly if it's a fit. I start all my consultation with saying, well, I don't know if I can help you or not. I got to see if it's a fit for me. And the client's like, well, what do you mean fit for me? Yeah, no, it has to be a fit for me as well. So let me see how I can help you, see if it's a fit for both of us. But there's often times where the client wants to do it, and I say, I don't think it's a fit for us.
I know it's funny. You know, I do a lot of the new client intake here, and when I take in a bad fit, it's just like me, the salesperson, if I take in a bad fit, me, the account manager, is going to be very unhappy. I'm creating a nightmare for the other half of myself.
And not only that, but the people around you, and they're cursing you of like, what was Scott on when he took in this client? I just had one of those a week or two ago, and in my better judgment, and I let my guard down just to be compassionate and caring for this person, and I ended up doing the investigation on the cheap, and then this person was the biggest helicopter client ever, and whoa, I thought this is fast food, and you were going to solve it at the first commercial break, right? Those types of things, just completely unrealistic.
It's so, I think before we turn the cameras on, we were talking about that meme everybody's seen, like $500 client, like this relationship is everything to me, and then the 50K is like check sign. And it's the same thing in every business. I know I made a huge mistake on the house cleaning business and here being inexpensive early, and then you realize, no, you just do an amazing service and charge for it is the right way. When did you learn that lesson?
Yeah, when I think I started to learn that lesson when just realized, whoa, we're solving a lot of these investigations, helping people wearing the white hat and seeing and hearing the stories from other clients about investigative companies. And I don't even want to say competitor because they weren't even in the same zip code, from a competition and a size-wise, but the light bulb came on to where, well, we do really provide a really good service. We are helpful. Wow, we really are distancing ourselves from the rest of the pack. So versus being concerned about your competition, how can we just continue to strive and do the very best for our client with the best outcome? And that's how you get a lifelong client, working with thousands of law firms and talking to literally thousands of attorneys, just approaching it from, hey, it's not just about this case. I want to build a long-term relationship with you and your firm, and you're going to have things over time. So if it's something that I just can't do for you because I don't think that we're going to be successful, I'm going to tell you that. Or maybe there's not a lot of meat on the bone as it relates to your client in this one-off, and we're going to do you a favor and solid, and we're going to do this thing at a loss leader because I believe show you sincerely over time, and we're going to build that relationship. And that business model works really well. Just talking to Mike, your business partner here, and going over the numbers and saying our retention for new clients is something like 50%.
Yeah.
So I'm very proud of that, and I'm proud of my people for that. And so that statistic alone jumps out off the page to just show we are doing a good job. We are getting results. We pride ourselves on over communication, and that's really the grassroots of growing a successful business.
You mentioned something that I think has always been is a challenge for a lot of business owners. Is you were the salesperson. You have a best feel for the market, how to sell it, how business owners and high net worth people think. So you mentioned this concept of this specific case for this prospect isn't a win for PHENIX, but I'm going to do it because I think there's fertile ground later. That's a really gray decision to make. How do you coach that? You have this new salesperson, coming next week. How do you coach through those gray areas where you just have to trust your feel?
Yeah. It's a great question. I try to coach on philosophy and the conception, the idea of it. So thinking back and using the football analogy, they didn't call plays for Peyton Manning. They would just give him concepts as it relates to the defense, and he would know what that is. And then in real time, he would make those decisions on those plays, and just wasn't saying, hey, Y banana right, to Z Y. Right? And so I try to teach and train all my people. Hey, it's conceptual. I can't tell you how to say and react to the client each and every time, and you're not me. And I hear salespeople who will listen to my calls over and over, and they'll say things that I've said, but it's not in context. It doesn't make sense. So you have to say, stop trying to be me because you're not me, and don't worry about that. Just be yourself. And conceptually, always go back to, can we help the client? What's their situation? Understanding, getting to the bottom of it. And don't worry about, I'm going to get this one or I'm going to lose this one. Just make sure you give the proper diagnosis, help the client. And then even our army of investigators are just fantastic in the sense conceptually they understand. They'll take a phase 1 to a phase 2. The scope of investigation always gets larger if you're doing a good job, not smaller. Hey, I talked to Scott. He gave me 3 other people. Went here. I got this information. It leads down these tracks now. Versus like, okay, it's a sales conception of like, hey, this to that. We are very matter of fact of, Scott, you're looking for $1 million. Hey, we found a bank account with $100,000. That's a great start, but I'm not finished because I didn't find your $1 million, right? But okay, yeah, we found $100,000 for your, $5K spend. Great result. Let's keep going and going. Here's why, and with conviction. And if you stop and you do nothing, you get nothing, right? So it's just having conviction of, I'm a dog with a bone. I need to get the results. I want to get the results. And the only way I'm not going to get there is if you're handcuffing me financially to get those results.
Yeah, I guess how I take that is it's a harder hill to climb to teach consultative selling in a sophisticated way and enforce a culture rather than here's a script and fields in a CRM to fill out.
100%. Your business is a challenge, but it runs parallel to ours that there's a lot of faith there. It's like, oh God, I really need to do this. I'd love my business to succeed, but I'm really putting a lot of faith into you, and I'm putting upfront money hoping that it'll blossom. We've talked about this. I could probably have a Swiss chalet somewhere for the lead balloons that I floated in marketing, and just black magic, types of marketing. And so, especially in today's world, it's all about sound bites. So how do you educate the person over time and what it is and what they need to do versus like, okay, tell me in 30 seconds what you do, and hey, that's your only opportunity. So, and your business is oversaturated with a bunch of hacks and a bunch of 20-somethings saying, oh, let me tell you how to wheel and deal. The reality is, in marketing and in your business or any business, all of this Instagram stuff of like, oh, get a side hustle, get rich quick, this and that. Oh, Brian, how'd you become so successful? You know what? Grind. Yeah. And it's going to take 20, 30 years to have and build a true empire and this and that. Doesn't happen overnight. And if anybody tells you from a marketing perspective, I'll look in the camera and tell you should run the other way. Yeah. because the reality is you have to find the right company. There's a soak time. And then the analogy that I always give is, look, it takes 80% of the rocket fuel to make the rocket move 1 inch. Right. And
that's a good one.
And it's really, so you just have to be committed, look at yourself in the mirror and say, hey, if this thing all goes awry, I got nobody to blame but myself, and have that reflection, get good people around you. And how many times have we bought something as consumers that just on the cheap, and then you're like, oh, this thing's a piece of garbage, versus like, okay, yeah, I'm really surprised. Yeah, I did spend more, but now I understand the quality and what I got for it, and it makes sense. And so you know, I wish I found you earlier in my career as it relates to marketing, and it's very rewarding to where we've started out to what, and our marketing spend, and having the faith and following that, and to now sit in a conference room like this morning and going all over the numbers and see, just seeing it tick up, and it's the arrows up logo, right? And it's just the graph, and it ticks up, and now you're saying, a 6 ROAS. So, I go to my shareholders and say, okay, show me where you can beat as a six times multiple in marketing. And if you can, sign me up.
It is funny. I always feel bad for the really, really small business now, because there's so many get rich quick, pay $2.99 and get these results that you just end up wasting money on, like the cheap work booths over and over and over and over again. For those people, it's just, unfortunately, the reality is just like, you just have to go make sales until you have enough to do it the right way, or you're going to light your money on fire forever.
Yeah, and I was guilty early on of like, okay, I'm gonna have $500 in ad spend for this month, and I'm gonna do it. And then it's like, oh God, I didn't get any cases. Yeah, that's because 3 people saw it.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, it didn't work, and so there's a bunch of like non-committed. I just saw this podcast. Do you know who Morgan and Morgan is?
Oh yeah.
And so. He did law firm, those that you don't know.
He's the biggest advertiser in the country probably right now.
Yeah, so he's a billionaire now, but he was just owned a little plaintiff's law firm and kind of went and franchised it and blew it up. But he was getting to the point to where they were spending $600 million a year in marketing, in ad spend. And you're just like, what? And it's like, so no matter who you are and how big you get, like that's terrifying. But look what he blew it up into. So I forget if it was Bill Gates or one of those billionaires, but they said, if you're down to your last $100, what would you spend it on? And he said marketing.
Yeah.
Right. So what I try to tell all young business owners, entrepreneurs, look, you can be the best expert in the world, but if people don't know you exist, it doesn't really matter.
That's the toughest thing, is because like, it was a long lesson for me, because both myself and our partners we're craftsmen, and we just want to have the best machine. And the unfortunate reality is the person that has the best machine hiding in a closet that no one sees is going to lose to the bozo that tells everybody about the mediocre machine. And it's the same in every industry and always will be.
Yeah, and you'll be like me, a bunch of black hat, black magic, types of stuff, and trial and error and not getting there. And so, I would advise anybody when you think that you're spending too much in marketing, spend more.
That is the thing I have on a lot of intro calls, is we talk about how much people are spending, what have they been doing, and the reality. I have a similar approach as you, is just extreme directness, and it is that way, and I'm sorry. When people learn what other people in their peer group and industry are spending, it is just jaw-dropping to some. It's like, you didn't start spending what you're starting, and I'm sure you metered up slowly from there.
I was naive. I didn't know any better. I'm just looking at the bottom line as it relates to what is this costing me versus what am I getting in return. It was just, okay, this is money going out, and not doing the analysis, right? And so just early on, I wanted to impress my clients so much, and I hated it because when I started out with my business in 25 and meeting a C-level of, a manufacturing facility with 800 employees. I remember saying, it's kind of like when you're 15, it's like I'm 15 and a half, right?
Yeah.
Now it's like, hey, from my, I don't want to say what it is, but early on, I just wanted to be older and more experienced, and I struggled to overcome that. But then the light bulb went off to where I remember I was sitting in a very high level, a bunch of attorneys in a conference room, a complicated investigation. They said, well, you seem really young. Why would we hire you? And I said, great question. What I would encourage you is talk to your peers and don't listen to a word that I say. So I can give you other C-level people, other attorneys that has as complicated or more complicated, and then just ask them about me. So I'm not here to sell you on my age or my experience. I'm here, talk to your peers, ask them. And that's how I overcame that. Ultimately, in today's world, people will ask, but they never do it. But it's no different than if you're selling somebody. It's like, don't ask me, call Brian at PHENIX and ask, what was your hesitancies? What was it? Well, what was it? What's your spend versus now? What are your results? And, brass, it's not all rainbows and candy canes. It's right. It's, hey, here's some of the challenges. Here's what you do. Yeah. Is there maybe some down moments or dark periods, or you start to question yourself, but you have to get to the point to where, okay, I got to stay the course. I believe it, right? Here's what it is. Okay, a new month. Okay, oh boy, we didn't do as well as we did. But then when you start to drill down, it's like, okay, is it really all marketing, or is it my salespeople have some deficiencies in closing? And what is the quality of those leads that we're getting in? All of those. What is the soak time? The soak time in marketing is what people can't appreciate, and the branches and the forks that come off of that tree. And so we were talking about this earlier, right? It's like, hey, yeah, my ROAS is a 6 from my marketing spend, but how many of those now with my 50% retention rates for my clients will come back to me? Mm-hmm. And how do you quantify that? How do you quantify, okay, it's the Kevin Bacon scenario of like that one client tells 7 others, and then they tell other people, and what does that lead to? So you have to trust the process, plant many seeds, water it, and some of those little seedlings will become saplings and big oaks.
Yeah, that's another tough reality is like a marketing person can't help a business that doesn't have a great service. It's just there's no amount of leads you can dump onto somebody that can't do the thing and bring customers back.
100%. When it's commoditized and it's very rigid of, okay, I'm selling this linear feet of fence. How much is it per linear foot for what you're selling versus my competition? And you're kind of pigeonholed, right? So really the sweet spot is, and any entrepreneur or business person should view it as, what is my value proposition? What is value to my customer? And how do I differentiate that from everybody else in the marketplace? And that's what PHENIX does really well, and that's what you've done really well for us is, look, don't call us if you're just looking for the cheapest. I talk to clients all the time and saying, look, if you're just looking for the cheapest, I would encourage you to call around, and if you dial for dollars long enough, you can find a guy that's going to regurgitate a public records report. But from what you told me, that's not going to move the needle for you, and that's not going to help you. But, the last guy, and I'll get this, like, hey, the last guy charged me $500. Well, I got to ask you, why aren't you calling the last guy?
Outside looking in, investigations is cheaters, domestics, baby mama, long lost connection, whatever, the stuff that's in the movies. You keep talking about attorneys, business people, C-suite. What are they calling you to look for? Like, what are the typical things that these high profile business people are asking you about?
Yeah, before I early on, I wanted to have that that moniker of I'm a corporate investigator, right? So a private investigator is cheating husbands and spouses looking in people's windows, right? That black cloud over your industry and things. And so I really distanced myself from that early on. And then I realized still in the marketplace, people were still in their head saying, well, I need a private investigator. And I don't know if they can help me. I need this information. I don't know where else to go get it. It seems like it would fit. So as much as I fell in love with the idea of being a corporate investigator, people weren't finding me that way from a marketing perspective. So the light bulb went off. It's like, hey, I just have to embrace this term of private investigator. And how do we just distance ourselves and show the client that we don't have a black cloud and this is not all the stuff that we do, right? So to this day, you know, sometimes we still have a challenge with that of, corporate people come to us and not sure what I'm going to get, or the perception is, oh, this is going to be a quick, easy little thing, and I only need this one bit of information. And, oh, I'm going to have some other professional like my attorney do the rest. And then once that door opens to say, whoa, not only they can get me this information, but they're a really good consultant, and they've seen this hundreds of times before. And so I've had those conversations, and sometimes the attorney's perception is the same, of like, yeah, I only need you. You know, I'm the attorney. I can do all of this, and I just need this one bit of information from you. And then that's where I kind of turn it around, and it's like, really? You're gonna not only get the information, but you're gonna go do door knocks and talk to this person and get the information and other witnesses and find out the oh shit moments. And, you know, part of that is educating the attorneys of like, look, I'm proud of you, very impressive. You got a law degree, you spent a lot of time, you really know what you're doing, but I could never do what you do, and nor do I want to do what you do. But you can't do what I do either. And that's where trying to coach them and let them understand is it is a good marriage. I'm going to go out, I'm going to get additional information and more witnesses, and you're going to depose them and you're going to put them in the chair, and I'm going to find the smoking gun type of documents that you're going to go, and now we break the logjam and you can litigate that and this and that, and I'm not taking food out of your mouth. It's a good collaboration partnership, and so I work with hundreds and hundreds of attorneys that continue to call me back all the time because they recognize that, and we have made them look good, and we have got the information. And we don't just say, well, here's the information. We say, hey, here's the information. Now here's what you do with it. Here's how you parlay it. Here's how you level up. Look, yeah, do we really need to go for litigation from A to Z and spend $500,000 in legal fees? Or can we just go through A through D, get this information, have the tow holder leverage, and to get out? And those really good attorneys that are secure, they don't go A to Z. They're like me. They go into, it's like, what is your problem? I'm going to tell you how to fix it. You got to embrace what it is that I do. And at the end of the day, yeah, we're not going to do A to Z. If all goes well, we're going to do this and get out, right? And because those attorneys are smart enough to know that client will come back to me, that client will refer me to others, and they're very comfortable in their skin versus, oftentimes junior attorneys, they're kind of coached and they think, oh, I just got to eat at the buffet while it's open and I got to go from A to Z, and some of that comes across as very insincere.
You do a lot of obviously work with corporations, and the scale of some of these investigations that I've heard about was kind of mind blowing. And I think one of the interesting things is, say you have like a big, like a corporate fraud or like a cargo theft thing, you have the inner workings of the business where you have the management, the line level employees, you have law enforcement, you have the attorneys, and you kind of have a mastery of all of the connective tissue and how all of these work together and the pattern recognition of years in the field. Is that how your clients see the value in Phoenix? Is you just know how all of it works together and you know where to look first?
Yeah, I would say 95% of the time they don't know what they don't know, and so they don't see that value there. So, I'll give you a quick example. Manufacturers solar panels. They call us and say, "Hey, there's with some social engineering." For those that you don't know what that is just, hey, somebody pretended to be us, intercepted communication, and they rerouted the load of $150,000 worth of solar panels, and guys told the driver to drop it off here instead of there. They offloaded it and they stole right. And so it's like, hey, can you help us find our solar panels? It's like, yeah, I can help you find your solar panels, but 50% of the time we may not find your solar panels. But if I can't prove the theft and I can re-engineer this brick by brick, I can sure the hell tell you the insurance company is not going to be able to figure it out either. And so you have mysterious loss, you have theft on your policy. So don't communicate with the insurance carrier, the adjuster. Get with me first. I'll review your policy, and we will shape this investigation and make sure, because the insurance company never wants to pay. And so when I do that, in this very case, we weren't able to find the solar panels. And I took it from A to Z, fighting with the adjuster and this and that. And you know what? Guess what? We were made whole 100% for our loss. But in any other situation, they would have said, no, this falls somewhere else under your policy. It's not covered. That's what they tried to do. And, so as well as having a deep bench of, hey, if we need to have an attorney throw three outs, I can refer you to a few attorneys that do that. So is what I tell clients now is, it's not just the little investigation that you need. What is the outcome? What do we need to do? And to your point, that connective tissue from, yeah, we're gonna get you there and we're gonna solve this one way or another. And we know because we've done it hundreds of times, right? And that's the muscle memory, and that's where other investigative companies just don't hold a candle to be able to fix those complicated issues.
I know it's just another day at the office for you. It's just like hand wave, like, oh, it was, I don't know, $150,000 solar panels ripped off. I think I had an early retail job, when I was in college, where they said, don't bother. If you see someone stealing, don't bother. We lose 5% of our revenue to shrink and theft. It's written into the books. We don't care. And it was just jaw-dropping to me that the amount of theft and fraud that exists in every industry.
It's rampant, and the amount of financial fraud now is bananas. And I do, just to your point, I get clients that call and say, well, we're kicking the tires. We don't really know if we're just going to pursue this $5 million loss we have or not. And every time I'm like, what? What do you mean that you're not going to pursue this $5 million loss? Like, yeah, we don't know. We kind of have, we're not sure for recovery. And yeah, we're not sure if it's going to be worth the $5,000 or $10,000 spend. And I just had this not too long ago with a client. It's like, yeah, we're not sure. And I said, okay, well, today's your lucky day. I'll give you $5,000 for the entire situation. Your entire judgment, I'll go ahead and I'll spend it. I'll give you $5,000 right now. Wow, we wouldn't do that. Okay, well, what does it look like if we don't do anything? You are never going to get $1, so $5,000 is really good for you. You have zero faith. Well, why would you want to buy it, Brian? Because it's $5 million, and I'm comfortable in my own skin and my capabilities. Maybe I don't get all $5 million back, but I think I can get a few $1 million back or $1 million back. And so a lot of that is to educate the client, because they just don't know, and it's the forest through the trees, right? And they just think like, oh, okay, on paper, this person doesn't have anything, so we're kind of stuck. No, you're not stuck. And so that whole thing is just financial fraud and just the pig butchering schemes now. And I have this terrible situation for this little old lady, sweet lady, This just took this in last week, but so she had a pig butchering scheme. For those who don't know, it's just basically this person was communicating with her, convinced her to give $70,000. She gives $70,000, and then for an investment, and then this and that. No, we just need 30,000 more, and then this is held up. Great, your investment paid off. Now you just need to pay the tax portion. So long story short, they get $160-something thousand out of her. And she's finally like, oh, you're not getting any more money, and I know that you're taking advantage of me. She then proceeds to get a call from a law firm that says, hey, we work closely with the Department of Justice and the IRS, and we saw that you filled out this form with the FBI, and we can help and assist, and we would need a $15,000 retainer, and we can do this and this and that. And I'm sitting there like, oh my God, please stop. It's just brutal. And then she proceeds. So I'm saying the Department of Justice and the IRS would not be calling you. So your email's compromised. They already got on your computer. They saw that you filled out the form with the FBI. So now you've retained this dummy law firm. Good God. That they've got, you did no diligence, and then she hires, beyond that, she hires them again as an investigative company. They do the same thing to her, charge her $7,500 to do the investigation, and all the meanwhile is it's the same bad guy over and over and over. And it's just sickening to know and see in my world day after day. And we feel like we're just on the front lines of this war and fighting the good fight. But again, if people, could get to us on the front end and spend $500 of due diligence to no, don't give your investment to this and that. Don't give this person, here's what it is, right? They don't. So now... and I wasn't trying to convince her, but she's just like, oh, God, I don't know who I trust. And I see you on the internet, Brian, and I see you have hundreds of 5-star reviews. And, boy, I see your bio, but I'm just not sure if you're real. And I'm saying, God, your situation, I hate to even quote you a price on this, but I can give you some free advice. Do not give anybody money. Stop giving people money. Vet it out, right? And then, as she did it more, then she had a comfort level, and we're actively working with her now to try to recoup her money and, kind of go backwards there and see what it is that we could do for her. So there's just, it's so rampant. Financial theft, internal theft, trademark infringement is a big one. So they steal your business identity, they steal your patents, everything else. They're avoiding OEM parts and using third-party parts that don't work. And so it's just bananas and crazy of what it is and how many different things are going on as we speak, and how much there's a need for it.
I've obviously looked at industry reports that expect the investigations and security and cybersecurity businesses to just skyrocket over the next 10 years. How do you, when I look at the evolution of technology, AI, I'm horrified for people like my parents. If my dad's already giving, bank access to cold callers, what happens when there's a video that looks identical to me coming out? What do you expect to happen to the fraud landscape over the next 10 years? Just exponential?
Just off the scale. And then, we're losing the war on that from even federal authorities not having enough manpower, state authorities and things like that. And so, nowadays the feds, you fill out that form, and I have so many clients that fill it out like, hey, I lost $2 million, and that just goes into the round file. It's like, yeah, thanks, but we don't have the manpower, this and that, and oh, you were probably beat by, these guys overseas, and there's nothing we can do about it. And it doesn't ever even get off the mat. The zero compassion, it's so rampant, and their threshold is Okay, do you have all the information, and have you solved the case, and do you have all the information? And then what was the dollar amount in which they took from you? Oh, $500,000. Yeah, no, that's not high enough, right? And so, I joke with people and say, yeah, if you just want to be a fraudster, don't steal more than $2 million, and probably nobody ever pursues you criminally.
So kind of the understaffing of federal law enforcement exists as a huge opportunity for your industry.
It is. And if you're the FBI out there, don't investigate me or this and that. I will preface this by saying, like, a lot of good men and women in all those divisions and, trying to fight the good fight. However, it is a losing battle. We've lost all the talent in those agencies. And so there's really not much teeth in it now, and it's really watered down, and it's just become a situation where the prosecutors aren't prosecuting these crimes, and law enforcement is trying to put up the good fight. But at the end of the day, there's so much. We as consumers and victims think, oh, let's go to law enforcement. Well, this is a pig butchering scheme, and it's complicated. There's numerous banks and wires and other people. And, the local law enforcement, their eyes roll in the back of their head and roll sixes, right? And be like, yeah, no, this is thing, and you got to call federal. And then federal says, yeah, you got to call state. You got to call local. And they're just bounced around. And nobody wants to put the time in or the brain power, because really what it comes down to is it's a resource bandwidth issue of, yeah, they have the resources. They could figure it out, but there's so many of them and it's complicated that it really takes time. And it's time that they don't have. Or in my situation, doing these investigations, putting on a shiny platter and then pushing the FBI to do it, and months, and then it's a different agent, and then I'm flying to Minneapolis to shame them into taking a case. And it's like, okay, how old are you? Oh, you're 22 out of the academy? And oh, how old are you as our assistant manager? Oh, I'm 25. Right. And so it's like, okay, well, what happened to the experienced, agents that I was working with and talking to that gave they're off in a different division. It's like, whoa, we're excited about this as a good one, but there's no experience there. And so then you're taking it to the Attorney General's office and saying, hey, I have video of a guy taking bricks of cash, putting in a Hello Kitty, box and carrying it out on his shoulder, putting it in a backpack, stealing millions of dollars from my ATM customer client. And even then, you don't prosecute the person. So I have to do the investigation, go meet with either the DOJ or the Attorney General's office or the master in charge of that whole FBI division, and be like, hey, man, you're elected, you're appointed, it's different. And this is really egregious. The client's spending the money that they shouldn't have to because they're paying tax dollars, and that cliche of like, yeah, I pay for you with our tax dollars. But a lot of that is true. And it's like, you guys are on the front line. Here's what it is. We would expect you to get that. And it's really disappointing. So in that example, the squeaky wheel eventually, and that guy ended up going to prison for 4.5 years for federal prison. And so even then, if the FBI does their job, they're not a financial recovery arm for your loss. They don't care about recovering your money. They care about, oh, let me put this bad guy in jail, right? So is what I tell the client all the time. Well, this is the road you're going to face. This is the complication, but you have to pick one of these two choices. Do you want the person in prison, or do you want your money back?
We've hit on the bad thing happens, and then you go and fix the bad thing. And that's something that I know the investigation industry in your business would be 100x the size if you realized, okay, attorneys in law enforcement aren't solving the problem. There's a ton of stake for me in this. Go to an investigator. there's a huge expected value in paying $5,000 to go turn over some stones. If there's a 1% chance you recover $5 million, math checks. Really obvious, straightforward. The due diligence stuff, I cannot believe people don't use investigators more. So like in St. Louis, small ball restaurant, I remember hires this GM a year and a half ago. Last week we see, okay, he's going to prison or he's under investigation for defrauding him for like $1 million, $1.5 million. When they hired the guy, I just look at Facebook and I remember this guy got arrested for doing it to like a hamburger chain or something 5-10 years ago. And I thought, oh shit, that's no good. That guy didn't even bother to Google the guy. Why are people establishing business partnerships, high stakes vendor relationships, massive investments without doing some sort of investigative due diligence on people? Because everyone's heard the nightmares.
And it's so short-sighted, and it's something that I've tried to get momentum in my entire career to say, private equity, for example. Oh, okay, we're gonna invest $500 million into this business. Yeah, we did our due diligence on paper, but you didn't investigate this guy for $5K on a $500 million deal. You're not doing your due diligence. It's like, so a lot of these businesses, it's almost like it's just human nature of, do I really want to know? Do I really want to ask the question? And it's the ounce of prevention is a pound of cure, right? And it's, I can't, it puts a smile on my face when I go in, do a huge internal theft investigation in a company. They drop 6 figures with us. We figure it out. We card the cancer. We get rid of the bad guys and then say, okay, well, we should probably do some quarterly training and awareness and make sure from a risk assessment we're always keeping the awareness and level high. And, hey, we can kind of do something for, a $10,000 bill over an annual basis. No, we're not going to do that. And it puts a smile on my face to know it's like, okay, you'll be calling me about 3 or 4 years from now, and the weeds will grow back in the garden, and you're going to have the same problem, a bigger scale or a little different version. And so, okay, you can drop another 6 figures, but it's crazy to me that, right, those types of things I make very little or no money on, right? But at the end of the day, it's just so much money flowing, but they don't want to look and identify the warts. It's crazy.
It's just bonkers to me. You'll have like a warehouse putting $500 million through this thing. You got hundreds of employees, expensive equipment everywhere. It is objective that fraud is it's an inevitability. It's going to happen. It's not an if, it is when, how much, how bad, how long, and no one will ever do the preventative audit.
Yeah, and I'll give you a quick story that is a little mind-blowing. Do an investigation, Korean small business, they sell apparel. Call me in a panic one day from South LA, and hey, our bookkeeper/accountant just discovered that he's, in about 4 months, took $3 million from us. So not just took the money sitting in the account, but this was like lines of credit. So it wasn't, right, so it's like he was being clever. So we go, we meet with the business, we do the investigation. I am on surveillance following this guy around to figure it out, to put him together. And then as I'm following the guy, a white Ford Taurus is following me. And I'm like, man, has this guy got, counter surveillance on me and this and that? No, it can't be. So I kind of dismiss, keep going. This car keeps following me. And then the guy gets back home and I'm down the street. And immediately this car whips around and pulls. And, hey, FBI, hey, what are you doing? You're following this guy, right? And so I go identify myself, say, hey, I need to meet with you at your office. So this guy was under surveillance by the FBI, but the whole kicker into the point of this story is, hey, you have already worked a case. He stole $4 million from his previous employer, being an accountant. You knew he's waiting federal sentencing on this. You've been doing surveillance on him for 6 months, knowing damn well that he was working for my client in a small business. In what capacity? As an accountant and a bookkeeper. Shame on you. The face on her just went red. And saying, well, we can't, that's not our obligation, and like you gave you allowed the fox in the hen house. Like, my guy would not be here if you did a little prevention and just frankly cared enough in order to do it. And I'll never forget the result of that. Is this guy he was in his 50s. He was also Korean. Had a 20-something-year-old girlfriend in a penthouse downtown, bought her a new Lexus. We showed up, interviewed her, new Rolexes, Louis Vuitton bags and everything. He's paying for everything. And the whole fraud scheme was that he would write out the check to her, $40K, $60K, $100K at a time, every other day. She would go to the bank, and then the bank would call the business to verify. Our bad guy, the boyfriend, would answer the phone, pose as the owner, and be like, yeah, no, you're good to go. Here's what it is. So they're like, okay. So they would cash it. So it was something like $3 million in 6 months. So normally you're like, okay, well, what assets, what can I recover? What is it? This guy was the worst gambler I think I've ever met in my entire life. He would take that 40, 60, 100K, he'd go down the street to the casino, and he would lose it every night. And why she had Louis Vuitton and Rolexes is because the casinos, and when you go to Vegas, it's like, oh, we want to keep you happy, and oh, what do you want? What's your girlfriend want? Because you're such a dumbass and you're dropping $250,000 and this and that, and we want you back. And so what would you like? So, those were like all of those goods, and taking the Rolex and all of that from her. And it's like, hey, and then, the client was distraught. And it's like, oh, here's these luxury items. He's like, I don't want them. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I can't be reminded of my wife walking down the street with this Louis Vuitton, and it always reminds me of this guy who stole this money. Greatest guy, salt of the earth client. I still communicate with him. Really nice guy, but just devastating. And it kind of goes back to this whole thing of just, hey, if you did a little due diligence and you did a background check on the guy, or a simple social media investigation, you'd find out he's waiting to be sentenced to go to federal prison. Right?
It just blows my mind that you've spent a lot of your career going through really messed up stuff. Really kind people being defrauded, friends screwing friends, employees screwing business owners. And I know we've used the term paid skeptic. How do you exist as a person that has optimism and trust in your personal life? How do you separate these two sides of your brain?
I don't, and it drives my wife crazy. It's hey, I'm a paid skeptic and seeing it all. So, the example that I'll give from time to time is you view the world through a completely different lens. So you go to Starbucks and the lady gives a $50 bill and gives the wrong change. You'd be like, oh, and then she's like, oh, sorry, I screwed up, and here's the 20 back. Oh, it's okay, honey, we all make mistakes. Whereas I know, oh, if that girl does that 5 times a day, making an extra $100 times whatever, and I've seen those schemes before. Now it could have simply been just that. Oh, I counted wrong, and I didn't give you the correct amount of change. But my view of the world is much different, and most people have an angle. So I live my life instead of just, there's something to be said for kind of being naive and going through. And whereas okay, what's this person's angle? What's right? And so it's very hard from a trusting. And so unfortunately, especially in business, I start out the conversations like, hey, before we get started, I just want to let you know what I do. And, if you ever had an ill thought or this and that, I'm not the person you're going to fuck over, ever. So as long as we get that out of the way and this is what it is, and let me tell you a little bit about, okay, well, that's my trust level. Now, how do we get started? And it's like, okay, if you don't feel comfortable working with me now, well, there's the red flag, and then, right? And so,
Yes.
so it is very, very different. And sometimes it's a superpower and sometimes it's a curse.
Yeah, that's like, to your point, there's something to be said for being naive and just existing, because the power of awareness, it can be pretty painful sometimes.
It can be painful. And, I say investigations is like death and taxes. It's always going to be there. You're always going to have people trying to screw over people and take advantage financially. And, I'm very fortunate that I've, carved out a very good niche, and we need more of us, and that's why I'm always very supportive of other investigators and people trying to get it started, because it's such a big world and it's only going to get worse and rampant, and we just need more of us to help those poor unsuspecting clients.
I lied about closing out with that. We'll close out with this: is you always have been an advocate for the investigation industry, and I've kind of turned into that too, because I've seen a lot of great things come out of this. If you're talking to young investigators getting started, maybe they're solopreneurs at this point or building kind of a small network, what advice would you give to them if their ambition is to be PHENIX Investigations in 20 years?
My advice would be, it sounds a little cliche, but focus on getting the results for your client, and all of the other stuff will fall in line. Don't figure out how you can get more money from the client, or what I see lots of investigators doing is like, oh, I'll package this up as this, but I know damn well I'm never going to get there from here. Right? So be forthright and transparent and do the very best job that you can. And it's perfectly okay if somebody wants to hire you to get Trump's tax returns. Yeah, sorry, but I can't get Trump's tax returns. I could see what other companies and what we estimate and what it is, and maybe reverse engineer some of this information, but I can't do it. Versus there's a lot of investigative companies that will just, to get the job, say, I can do it. And then it just puts the rest of us in a very bad light. And okay, they don't trust us, and you're not going to build a good, solid business going forward with that model.
I think that's beautiful advice, and it's kind of funny. That's overlapping really the best marketing advice possible is, we can do a lot for you, but you got to do a great job.
You got to do a great job, and you got to produce at the end of the day, and transparency is key. And I tell clients all the time, I know you're missing $2 million and you want me, and they'll ask you, like, what's the probability that I could get my money back, and what do you think? And they're hanging on every word, and you could absolutely take advantage of them because they're so desperate.
Yeah.
But I coach clients, if you talk to other people and they guarantee you that they're going to absolutely get your money back, I would run the other way. What you told me, my knowledge would fit in a thimble about your situation. I can't tell you what it is until I died. I can give you some general probabilities, but everything's a snowflake, and I just really don't know until I get. So it's the trust, the expertise, and start looking at not all your $2 million, but let's get some small wins, singles and doubles. And so, can I find a bank account for 50 grand here, or 150K here, or another asset for $250,000? Let's focus there first, and let's get traction, right? And so at the end of the day, solid advice would be focus, perfect your craft, don't overpromise and underdeliver.
That's beautiful advice. Thanks for coming on. I know we could talk for hours, and we have. So if you want to hear more stories about the investigative space, check out the PHENIX Investigations podcast. There's some unbelievable stories. Thanks for coming by.
Absolutely. Awesome.
Arrows in Motion is hosted by Scott Heaton. Produced by Corey Montero and Doug Wicker. Follow us at Arrows in Motion Pod and Go Arrows Up, and go to goarrowsup.com for more.